Okay, welcome to the daily shiur, daily lecture that we have on Kabbalah. We're going to dedicate this shiur for the Hatzlacha of Fegel Sarah Bat Reuven Leib and to Rachel Chaya Bat Sarah and to all the people who are in great need. We're going to continue talking about the Sefirot, which we started last time. Now, in order to understand this world better, we really need to understand and open our eyes to understanding of the symbols that exist in this world. Until now, we were talking about the Sefirot, the different aspects in the soul and the person and so on and so forth. But we need to go a little deeper to understand into the energy channels or to the energy qualities of the Sefirot themselves. Understanding those meaning of those symbolism might give us a completely different new look in our lives. We could understand our world in an internal matter that it's much deeper and better, and really understand life on a totally different scale. For example, we can understand our dreams. We can even understand our fantasies, our imaginations. We can get different meaning to subjects and events to take into our life, which is more real, deeper. So recognizing the symbolism and the symbols of the spiritual world, which in a way is our internal world, could really help us get a better a grip on whatever forces happen in our lives and the inner parts of our own soul that sometimes it's just like impossible to get. Why do we do what we do, and so on and so forth. More than that, when you're looking to connect yourself to a higher guidance that really comes from the upper world, understanding those, as we said, the symbolism of this world could really give us a better ways to transform that knowledge or that guidance that comes from the upper worlds, because over there everything is really abstract, and the symbolism are the vessels of the human awareness to connect to those abstract concepts in those worlds. And the transformation of knowledge from the upper world to our world really depends on the ability for us to translate those spiritual concepts, which are very abstract, to something more physical of our world, to our reality, which is physical. Also help us many times to closing the gaps and to create less of a dissidence internally between the spiritual reality that we all are a part of and the physical reality which we're all a part of. So makes you basically more in peace. So we need to, or we would like to understand this. So now let's look a little bit about the Sefirot now and the descriptions to come to play in the Kabbalah as tools in which the world is being run and behaves by God, which is really the ends of the eternal God. Our Sefirot are measured in Kabbalah to 10 different gates in which a person can enter and could really reveal some divine secrets to them. Though the contemplation that we're going to have or we're going to deal with comes to really, hopefully, help us reveal that hidden aspect of reality, which brings a person closer to understanding this world, the formats, the patterns, which is being reflected to our world, and which is reflected by opening the gates to what we call Olam HaAtzilut. That contemplation is called, as Chazal called us, Gilui Sodot Maasei Bereshit, the revealing or revelations of the secrets of creation. And the parts of the Torah that deals with creation has like a double meaning to it, at least. Well, on the surface, it really tells us how the world was created. And in the hidden realm, it tells us how the world of Atzilut has been put together. As the Ramban, Nachmanides, says, and I'm quoting, Ki al derech haemet, on a truthful matter, hakatuv yagid batachtonim, is going to say things out in the open so everybody in this world could understand. Ve'irmoz is going to hint by elyonim to the upper world. And on that, the Zohar says, Ma'aseh Bereshit, the act of creation, af hu itrachesh b'shnei mekomot elu, also occurred in two different those dimensions. Ma'aseh echad lemala, something happened in the world out, u'ma'aseh echad lemata, and a similar act was done in this world here. And the Zohar says, and therefore, ptichat Torah bebet, that's why the reason the Torah started with the bet. Whatever is happening in existence here is in existence there. Sefira here, by the way, really talks a lot about that. And even though it's a small book, but it's a tremendous resource to understand. Maybe one day in the future we're going to dwell a little bit into the Bahir. So the Zohar continues, it says, Ze asa et olam ha'elyon, v'ze asa et ha'tachton. Whatever happens up there, happens here. Whatever is up here, happens there. We mentioned it before already a few times. In such a way, the Zohar is able to interpret in a mystical way the three first words of Maaseh Bereshit. And it is, Bereshit bara Elokim. At the beginning, God created. Bereshit, the Zohar says, Zo bara hasatum shelo noda. He created something that was not known. What is that? Et ha'ichal hazeh, that chamber. Ha'ichal zeh nikra Elokim. V'sod zeh bereshit bara. In other words, through the Sefira of Chokhmah, that is called Reshit, all the other Sefirot came out. HaKadosh Baruch Hu brought about Sfirat HaBinah, and Sfirat HaBinah is called the chamber of God. And that's called Briat Yesh Me'ayin. That's where something was created, because in our world, there's no such thing as creation. We cannot create something out of nothing. Only in that realm, in that sphere I could. And therefore that chamber had to be created in order for that to take place. And that comes to what we call, that description comes to explain to us the exit of Chokhmah, because Yesh from Keter, that's called Ayin. Yesh mi Ayin. Yesh is Keter to Chokhmah. So now we're talking about the Sefirot. Now also Bereshit bara Elokim is could refer to also scientifically the fact that, there is a creator to the world. So anything that is created or anything that is a creation had somebody to create it. So therefore God created. How did he create it? Yesh me'ayin. In other words, he started ascending something from Keter down, and then what will happen? Bereshit. In other words, what's Bereshit? In the beginning. That is the first indication that we have to the creation of time. There is a time zero. In other words, that's the beginning of time. With time, of course, there was, after there was time, there was place. Time and place were created together. After we had time and place, of course, then light came, and then all physics came about. But without time and place, those dimensions, that's basically our four dimensions that we live in. We live in those three dimensions of space and the dimension of time. So that's this world down here. So now let's talk a little bit about the Sefirot themselves. And I'll start today with the Sefira of Keter. So to most of the time, the Sfirat Keter is called or it's referred to as Ayin. And the meaning of Keter as Ayin comes to tell us, Ayin means something that there is nothing or nothingness or from where and so on and so forth. It's something that is not known. Comes to tell us that it is so, or let's say, because it is yesh in our world is ayin, is ayin in this world. In other words, it's so great that it's so high for us to reach. And one of the ancient Kabbalah book, it says, מתוך שהוא פשוט, since it's so abstract, וכל הפשוטים מורכבים, נגד פשוטותו, נקרא כנגדם עין. In other words, it's so abstract that everything below that, this is too abstract to the point that it's, in a way, not here. And therefore it says, ועל כן נקרא עין, and that's why it's called עין. In other words, אין מי שיכול לעמוד עליו. There's nobody that could really measure it or relate to it. So it's so abstract, it's so out there that it's, in a way, it's not here. ואם ישאל השואל ויאמר, and if somebody will ask, it would say, היש פה, יש שיכול האדם לחשוב בו, is there any substance that men could really think of? ואמר, and he says, אין, there isn't. Why? כי על כל פנים אין הוא דבר הנסתר שאין מי שיכול לעמוד בו. אין is something so hidden that nobody could really tell you what it is. And because of that, it's called Keter. A Keter is also called what we refer to as afisat machshava. Afisat machshava, in other words, it's, as they say in Hebrew, ke'ainu ke'efes. What is your thought? Did you think about what is the thought? We don't know what a thought is. We can't explain what a thought is. Can we measure thoughts? No, we can measure maybe activities in the brain, but we can't really think what thought is. To compare thought to Keter, it's nothing. It's so thick. In other words, even thought in something so abstract, it is still the Keter is even more abstract than that. In other words, it's so abstract that the machshava, that the thought, could not grasp it whatsoever. So we're talking about very, very advanced thinking, Rabotai. This is not something that you can take on some Kabbalah course and put some kind of a hat on you and call yourself a Mekubal. You really have to train your mind to think in those terms. In addition to that, Sfirat Keter, that Sfera of Keter, is also a connection between the Ein Sof, between HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which is the absolute nothing, to the evolving words that are revealed in what we call Olam HaAtzilut. In this connection, the Ein Sof is called Ha'or She'eino Omed Ba'or, the light that could not stand the light, or Ha'or HaMe'ir La'atzmo, the light who shine to himself. And the Sferot are called Ha'orot HaDolkim VaMa'irim Lezulato, the lights in which are shining and the light for others. And therefore the Keter is the bridge that bridges on the passage from HaKadosh Baruch Hu to creation itself. And it is unbelievable. It's like an unbridged gap that it's so great that we need something in between to call it. So that is the bridge. There is this world here and there is God, and something that bridges is that. This is why we can find in Keter two other bchinot that are called in other names. It's called Atika Kadisha, right? The ancient holy one, Ve'arich Hampin, the log face, or we call it Atik Ve'arich. By the way, you could see those concepts as the Ari has those special poems that he wrote that we sing on Shabbat. We say Atkina Seudata, Azmina Atika Kadisha, and so on and so forth. So that is what it comes. So therefore, the Mekubalim wrote, the Sfirat Keter is divided into two different aspects. One of them is the one who is connected to Ein Sof, and that's called Atik. And the other one, which is connected to Bria, and that's called Arich. So that is divided. Atik is the relation to Ein Sof, to the divine light as it is by itself, without any connection to creation. And that brings about the let's say the power of tshuva, what to go back to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So when we said that a person is me'arer b'tshuva, and his tshuva is amitit, is somewhere along the line, the light of Keter was shining upon him. It was brought about him. And this, and arich is the urge of the light, or the neshama elokit, to really disconnect from its source in order to live as a separate entity in this world of details. Atik always looking to erase the boundaries of the personal awareness that in a way interrupts or disturbs the ability to be completely connected to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And Arich tries in all the power that he can to really keep this boundary and to develop your own individual, independent identity that is unique to all of us. So Atik is the ancient one, brings about the yearning, the missing, and so on and so forth, to the point that really, with all, as they say, with all your power, to something obsolete, to something, that is complete, that exists beyond the boundaries of tangible reality. Arich develops the love to the world. He finds an endless beauty in very specific details that we have, and from this looking at creation, understanding, all the details, the interaction of them, that comes from Atik. I'm sorry, that's Arich. Atik is pulled to the Ein, Arich is pulled to the Yesh. So Yesh mi'ain. Atik is the root of the lights, and Arich is the root of the kelim, of the vessels. And we have to understand that in terms of dealing and understanding of what the divine is, there is an aspect that is beyond this world and does not relate to this world. And that is called in Lashon Kabbalah, Kulya Kameh Kelo Chashiv. In other words, this world is not really considered to be anything for HaKadosh Baruch Hu in terms of he needs and so on and so forth. And there is an aspect that is called Memale Kol Almin. That is that the divine presence in the world that really has interest in that very limited well-sought boundaries of our expression, of our life. And that's what we, as we say, Ratzah HaKadosh Baruch Hu livlot lo dira batachtonim. HaKadosh Baruch Hu wanted to build a residence for himself in this world. So that's how God interacts from us. Another one is to create a certain urge that really to be all by itself. And the other one is that creates an urge to create a certain relation with its surrounding, to create a certain relationship. And that's how we actually relate to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. HaKadosh Baruch Hu had to create this part that wants to connect to the people, not for him, but for us to be able to relate to him. In other words, God created something, and when we talk a little bit more about the concept of tzimtzum, we're going to get further there into that. But he created this thing so we could relate to it. So in a way, HaKadosh Baruch Hu goes out of his boundaries, and he creates this place so we could something that is quote unquote not so divine, so we could relate to it. It's just almost like an extension of his hand from his realm to our realm. Now, when those two forces are in a complete balance, they in a way create almost like two different vectors that are really balancing one another, and they create a spiral, or what we called yerida letzorech aliyah, going down for the sake of going up for the sake of going down. So this spiral is like a spiral that goes down like this, creates a unity and a complete unity. That unity is really perfect, one into the other, one into the other. In other words, the way atik refers to arich, right, is it could be exposed by, or could be understood by the way that, let's say, for example, chemistry refers to the order in chemistry that you would find in or order that you find in biology, with material sticking to another material, how one element connects to another element, and by doing so, all of a sudden you get substance. Like, for example, if we have H2O, right? What's H2O, right? A certain order of hydrogen and oxygen with a certain amount, that the connection of these two elements together in the proper mix of, the certain atoms of water to certain atoms of hydrogen, all of a sudden create to us water, right? So between those two things, all of a sudden we get the water. And water is a very important substance. It creates a certain, so that need to integrate, putting things together in order to create something that is tangible, and that's how it's being formed. So you can basically look into chemistry and look at chemistry from a completely different point of view. Basically, you can learn chemistry through Kabbalah, or chemistry could be the science of Kabbalah, right? Now, also, that the dynamics is, and that dynamics that we are talking about is the dynamics of all forms of or elements of creation itself. Those two urges act on all levels, and together, by doing so, they create the appropriate balance in order, as we explained, in order to create things. We need to create always two sides. Two sides are opposing to each other, but yet are striving to come together. That dynamic creates, or allows us to create things, allows us to create order. And every order, whether it's on a high level or low level, right, you can see a divine guide in it. It has to have two sides. One of the reasons, that's why we also have, and later on in creation, we have the tohu vavohu. We have the creation of good and bad together, and that is also for a reason. There are some mekubalim that call that aspect of Ein Sof in Keter, choshech sechel or kavau batal betocha. However, that is, even though there's a certain darkness of light that was in a way disappeared within it, like a spiritual black hole, in a way, something like that. But really, it is also, on the other hand, the source of all the lights in the worlds of Atzila and in the world of Bria. And there are some Mekubalim that actually call this Bchina of Dan Vamavet. In other words, that is the source that everything that in existence, since nothing is existed there, that is the source of everything that is existence. And that's, talking a little bit about Keter. We're going to talk more about this, God willing. But we need to, first of all, talk about this in very, how should I say it, non-specific way, to later on see how they really come apart and together. Next time we're going to talk about, God willing, is going to be on the Sefira of Chokhmah and Binah, and then we're going to take later on to other aspects. So until this point, boys and girls, don't forget to please share, like, and subscribe. And God willing, we're going to see you all tomorrow. Well, actually tonight, but then we're going to see you again tomorrow. Have a blessed day, a safe day, and don't lose hope.